Louise McEvoy. Absolute pleasure talking to Louise. Very inspirational woman. She's vice president of channels at Trend Micro. But by the way, she climbed Mount Everest. She's climbed over 14 mountains. Uh, she is just very inspirational. Really great person to talk to, glean information from. We talk about getting uncomfortable and how much you learn when you're uncomfortable and how what small businesses can do and MSPs, managed service providers, can do, and just people generally, or how they can excel when they're uncomfortable. It's just a great story about how she summited Mount Everest and other mountains, and how she got there, and the process. It's just a great conversation. Really, inspirational, and she's a Forza Dash Channel Leader Award recipient 2022 as well. But I really enjoyed this conversation. I know you're going to like it too. Thanks so much for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic. I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business? And it lasted over 25 years. Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission: how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family, and their passion, and their careers, and how it helped them. Our podcast vision: growth through learning from others. Joey Pin's Discipline Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. How important is it for people to get out of their comfort zone?
Such a good question. I mean, I like speaking for myself, I think the more I get out of my comfort zone, the more I learn.
Hmm.
The more I experience, the more new experiences I have, the more people I meet, the more life opens up to me. How's that for an answer?
Yeah, that's a great
Yeah.
place to start.
Okay.
It's easy to say, though. It's easy to say, it's harder to do.
You think so?
Well, people get really kind of comfortable in what they do. I mean, so we'll just take the example. When I lost a lot of weight, I saw that there was an issue there, and my doctor said I'm not going to see my daughter anymore. Something's got to change. I had kind of this come to Jesus moment, and I just changed the way I did things. But I kind of bottomed out at that point. I mean, you climbing Mount Everest was not a bottoming out. I mean, as I understand it, you were just kind of a little bored. You got some things happened to you. You got laid off. Some other things happened, and you went and did this. But you certainly broke out of that very quickly. That comfort zone.
I did, but it wasn't that I wasn't like I decided I'm gonna climb Mount Everest one day and then a couple months later I was on the summit.
Right.
It was a journey. And part of that journey is good, part of it isn't so good, part
Mm.
of it is a whole lot of life lessons learned. And I did an exercise and I looked back at the summit, going back to where did I start? And I recognized that there were a whole lot of people, emotions, and experiences that had to be inserted into my life
Hmm.
before I got to that summit. And not every experience or emotion is going to be positive,
Right.
but I recognize that even sometimes the bad emotions, like I was lonely, I was laid off, so I was mad, I was sad, I was confused, some of like if I didn't have that catalyst to go, okay, I'm not going in this same journey today. I have to switch direction. If I didn't have that emotion or experience, I wouldn't have made the summit.
Hmm.
And so it gave me a different perspective. Well, sometimes bad things happen for good reasons. And sometimes people are inserted into your life for a moment in time and then they're gone. But maybe it was for a reason. And maybe you don't know that reason right now. And for me, it was, 14 years later, I was on the summit. But when I
Right.
went back, I went, wait a second, that person was inserted in my life because she recommended a book to me. I had no idea, right? That small conversation would change my life. Yeah. So I think you may not even recognize the journey you're on right now. Who knows? And I think it's fascinating. I love it. I love that unknown. I've learned to embrace it now because I know that it could be good things ahead.
Yeah, certainly so. Do you believe that? Well, I'm fascinated to hear your answer here. Do you believe that certain things are kind of predestined, or that you're kind of making your own path?
I don't know. That's a
Yeah, I don't
big
either.
question. I don't know. I think in the I have sort of evolved, and so okay, just let things happen, let things unfold versus trying to be in control versus again, I'm kind of a control person in a way.
Hmm.
And sometimes when you let go of the control, then the path unfolds the way it's supposed to.
Hmm.
And that was a life lesson learned for me when I was getting ready for Everest, that I had to let go of a lot of things in order to just it was too big. It was too big. Getting ready for Mount Everest was too big. So I decided I have to let go of things. What can I let go of? And then the path was before me. It was almost, I don't know, it was almost freeing in a way that I could just enjoy that journey without it being in control of it.
Hmm.
Hope that makes
Very well
sense.
said. Yeah, but I mean, you went to law school. You were at IBM for a long time. It's not, you know, you you're very a high achiever. I guess that's my point. I don't want the listeners to think that, kind of things fell upon you and things came into your path and you took advantage of it. I mean, you are a high achieving, very intelligent, person. I'm going to attribute a lot of it to your hard work as well.
So I'll just correct you in one thing. I didn't go to law school. I got a
Oh,
minor in law.
I see.
Yeah, my destiny wasn't law, unfortunately. I still enjoy it though. Yeah, so did go to university in Canada and yeah, I'm a kind of a, type A, I say A plus
Hmm.
plus. Um, so I do put a lot, I take pride in a lot in what I do. But it can also be exhausting, right? When everything you do has got to be
Mm,
perfect.
mm,
And so I learned the hard way. You don't have to do everything. You don't have to be on all the time. It's actually better to take a step back and let things unfold and enjoy that journey versus always being in control. Yeah, that was a tough life lesson learned for me.
absolutely. So you read the book, and from the time you want to summit, not just climb Mount Everest, is how long? How long of a period? Because you do a lot of work in between, correct?
I do. Yeah. So a friend of mine suggested reading the book. I moved from Canada to the US. I didn't know anyone. Every weekday was alone. Every weekend I spent
Mm,
alone. And I just sort of said, oh, I'm kind of alone. It was, I have to say though, it was the most liberating year of my life because I could do whatever I wanted,
hmm,
but it was also the most lonely. I was by myself there all the time. That's when she suggested reading the book. And I read it and it was about climbing Everest, about the Everest disaster in 96. And, what is a real tragic story in a series of events that actually I didn't know that this world existed. I knew that Everest was the tallest mountain in the world. I didn't realize people like me could climb it.
hmm,
And but I didn't envision climbing it. I just wanted to see it because it sounded beautiful and the Nepalese people sounded beautiful. So I just wanted to see it. And 4 years later, I got laid off. and I had all this time off in the world, and they gave me money, so I had nowhere to go the next day. They got a bunch of money, so I decided to go online that night and look for a company that was taking people just to base camp. So that's 4 years from the time I read the book to base camp. And when I got
Wow.
to base camp, I went, oh my goodness, there's this mountain, this environment, this experience is more than I expected. It was life changing, and I'd already made a promise to myself that I would see the mountain in real life. When I saw the mountain in real life, I'm like, I want to climb the mountain. So
Wow.
I made a promise to myself I'm going to climb that mountain, and it was from that point, 14 years of training. So I climbed all around the world, took courses and courses, and hiked. I'm in Southern California, hiked the local mountains over and over and over again. And so it wasn't just I'm going to do this and I marched up the mountain. It was a lot of different preparation in order to be the best I could be for that mountain, because it's risky, and I didn't want to risk my life or anyone else's life.
Hmm.
That's not fair to other people, because I have this journey in mind. So I wanted to be that best version of a climber I could be. So yeah, that was 14 years of climbing.
Wow.
And
One thing you said there that you have to elaborate on if you don't mind. You said you saw this mountain, which I'm sure is breathtaking,
mhm.
uh, and you said you had to climb it. So was it? I can only liken this. I have a friend. I'm not a car person, but I have a friend who has a high performance vehicle, and he let me ride it. And I swear that thing was teasing me to go faster. I don't know what it was. Was it something intrinsic, like the mountain was speaking to you, and you needed to? It would seem fearful to me, and something that's dangerous, but not with you. You took the complete opposite view of it.
No, to me it was beautiful. It's a beautiful mountain, and when you see it in real life, and just the whole journey to get there, and the people, the Nepalese people, the landscape, the environment, it it changed me. There was something in me that shifted, and it was now my new destiny, my new calling. And I have to say,
Wow.
when you have something that you wake up to every day and go, I'm going to get this done, it gives you a reason to put 2 feet on the floor every single day and
Hmm.
go, I'm going to get this done. It changed my life. I have to say, it was, versus just getting out of bed, going to work, doing the same old. It made a difference. Now I'm like, I'm getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I'm embracing it. And I'm going to go to the gym, or I'm going to I loved it because there was this end goal in mind, and it's beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah, it
And so
changes things.
you went to the base. You'd never climbed the mountain before then, and then you went back home and you started climbing mountains. That really started. Propelled you into mountaineering.
It did. I mean, I'd always been an athlete. I had come from, I had spent 10 years playing touch football on a
Wow.
women's team and a co-ed team. I was a quarterback for the last 3 years. I'd play soccer, all kinds of stuff, right?
Right.
Always been an athlete, but never this. And I I decided I'm going to try it. So when I went on this trip, it was a trek to get, we flew in, I landed in Kathmandu, Nepal, and then there were 15 other people like me, just trekking to base camp. And from there, we all bonded. So there was, 16 of us. And I still, to this day, and this is going back to 2004, I believe, to this day, I'm still in touch with four of them from that trip.
Wow.
And from that trip, three of us went to Kilimanjaro the next year, and we summited Kilimanjaro in Tanzania. And then from there it was like, okay, now I've got this there's something in me that I didn't even know existed. And the next year I went to Rainier in Washington State, and from there it was like the next one, and it wasn't a check off the list. It was like this passion inside me. I really want to experience the next one, the next culture, Argentina, Russia, Morocco, France. So it's like, you name it. I've climbed all over the world, and it was just like every single mountain, you learn something new, you meet new people, you experience new things, you see new. It's incredible. I would highly recommend it.
Do you still climb?
I do. I just got back from Antarctica in January. I was there
My
for three
goodness.
weeks. So I climbed Vincent Massif, which is the highest mountain in Antarctica, just over 16,000 feet. Um, and then I've, I go hiking on the weekends. I leave Friday and I'm going to do a 3-day hike just to get out. And yeah, so I just pitch my tent and just do whatever I can. Yeah, that's my thing.
Absolutely incredible. Have you seen the documentary 14 Peaks?
I have Nim Sherpa. Yeah, he's incredible. That's an incredible feat. I don't know takes 7 weeks to climb Mount Everest. To do 14 peaks in 7 months is, yeah, it's like you're literally up, down, up, down. I don't know how he did it. Plus all the different, challenges in life that he had in between that.
Yes.
Oh, it's incredible. Yeah.
But these are the peaks that are over, do I have this right? Over 8,000 meters?
Leaders, right? Yeah, there's 14 in the world, in the Himalayas and the Karakoram region. Yeah, so yeah,
Oh
so
my
it's in,
goodness. It,
it's amazing that he could do that.
yeah, that was wonderful. That was absolutely wonderful documentary. I highly recommend it. Kilimanjaro in Tanzania. I've never been to Africa. What was that like? Wonderful.
Oh, I tell you, I had never been to Africa either. And there are many, many different countries in Africa. And so I landed in Tanzania and they call it Tanzania. That's how the
Mm.
locals pronounce it. And we took a little bus to the base of the national park and spent 7 days climbing the mountain. And it's interesting because it's a very interesting mountain because there's different ecosystems. Like there's a desert ecosystem, different fauna, flora. There's the like Arctic kind of ecosystem. It's
Really?
fascinating. And the people are fascinating and the culture is enriching and the environment and the food. And Africa got into me. I tell you, I had a hard time shaking it when I got home. I kept longing for Africa.
Hmm.
It was just a different life altogether. And I couldn't shake it. It took me a long time to really process that trip and that experience that I had. It just got in my blood. And yeah, I've been back a number of times to different countries in Africa. I couldn't get it out of my blood. There was something about it. Highly recommend it.
Wonderful. And when you climb now, excuse me, like this recent trip into Antarctica, do you have a common group that you go with?
Now it's there's a group that I go with. So I sign up to an expedition company and I meet new people, and or sometimes I'll go with the same people, but it's a very, very, very small group of people that do high altitude mountaineering.
Hmm.
And just because I want to do Vincent Massive in Antarctica this year doesn't mean my friend wants to do it or is able to or can afford to or
Stay.
take time off work or may not be on that person's, mountains that they want to climb. So I'm constantly meeting new people. You're forced to meet new people. You're in a tent with a stranger for weeks, and so you kind of have to get along and figure things out. And it works though. It's quite, So from that group, there are four of us who want to go on and climb a mountain in Papua New Guinea. It's closed right now for a little bit of civil unrest, but once it
Hmm.
opens up, the four of us are going to head on over to Papua New Guinea to climb Karsten's Pyramid. Yeah, so there's all kinds of mountains in the world, and it's just a matter of getting with the right group of people and or meeting new people, which is always fun too.
Yeah, that leads me to my next question is like you go to these wonderful geographies and the culture plays a large part in, in that mountain, in that climb, I'm sure. And you get to me, it just seems so fulfilling because it's not just climbing the mountain and summiting it. You're also diving deep into the culture of these people because you're there for so
Mhm.
long and you get to understand how they work and how they live and how they
Yes.
practice and preach and pray and eat and think and
Yeah.
sleep. It's just a wonderful, well-rounded experience.
It's incredible. Yeah, and Everest, it takes 7 weeks, like from the time you
Right.
land in Kathmandu till you time to get to base camp, acclimatize and get back. So you get a really good feel for the people and the environment and the culture. And I loved it. You feel like you're part of that community in a way. And yeah, it's pretty special. Antarctica was the only one that I didn't have that experience.
Right.
Because when you think of it, like, so when you land, like, so Antarctica, big continent, but when you, for the climbers, we land in the middle of the continent. It's not like we're on the, the ocean side and we're seeing the penguins are hanging out there.
Mm,
We're in the middle. There is no buildings other than tents. There's no there's no people who live long term. There's no Antarctican people.
right.
It is just people who've flown in for a period of time to support the expeditions or the research. And there's no Antarctica food per se. It's just all
Right.
flown in. So you don't get that cultural experience. And when we landed, it's just ice, snow, glaciers. So it's not like you're seeing
Wow.
new fauna or buildings or structure. You don't see that. You don't see any of that. It's completely void of everything. So that one was different because it was void. It was still a beautiful location, but it didn't have that experience that I've had on other mountains. That's okay though.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, perhaps that's its own culture. I have never once, I've traveled a little bit, but I've never once seen an Antarctican restaurant, you know, not
For good
once.
reason, because there are none.
Yeah, not once.
Yeah.
I had a great pleasure of speaking to somebody who's from New York City, but he's in, Vietnam now, and, he talks about this one particular area in Vietnam where, their custom there is that they bury the dead, and after 3 years, they bring the bones up and they put them in a separate place. So there's one particular place near Hanoi, near the water, where they bury the dead in coffins in these rice fields. And there's all holes in the coffins, and the fish come in and clean the bones off. And great tasting fish in that area. So it's just a very interesting cultural thing there that it would just completely escape me. I can't help but wonder some of these culture experience that you must have experienced in all these places that you've gone. Any particular story you remember that was just so fascinating, was so noteworthy to remember?
Oh, as a kid, just my,
I,
um, there's so many. I'm just trying to think on which mountain do I talk about or which experience because there's um
how about Kilimanjaro? I mean, that's Africa's such a wonderful. I've never been. I want to go. I can't imagine the people there must be so fascinated, and they tourists has got to be a big kind of
I'll
invite there, right?
I'll share a story with you because it really did change my perspective on things.
Wonderful.
So after the summit, we came back down and then we did a safari. I highly recommend doing a safari
Hmm.
and but we were with the Maasai people, largest nomadic tribe in the world, and there was this 2-year-old boy who had a stick, and his sole job was to herd a goat. That was his job at 2 years old. And he took his job really, really seriously at that young of age, right? And it was fascinating to me to see this tribe and the families and just the community environment. I really, really enjoyed it. Well, I fly back to Orange County, California, and it's a beautiful place here, but everyone's driving their big SUV and they're all rushing to the next red light, red light, red light. And I'm sitting at a red light and I am just back from Africa and I still have Africa in me. And I'm sitting at a red light and some lady rear ends me. And I thought, lady, I'm going to kill you. And because I was angry, right? Like everyone's rushing. What are you rushing
Sure.
for? You're just rushing to get to a red light.
Right.
So I get out of my car and my bumper's hanging off and I am looking at her and I'm going to kill her. She's looking at me like, oh no, she's going to kill me. And as I'm walking to her car, Africa comes over me. And I looked back in my car and the bumper's hanging off. And I thought, what would they do in Africa?
Huh.
I thought, well, nothing, because they don't have cars where
Right.
it was, right? They don't have them. And if they did, they wouldn't care about a bumper because that's so irrelevant, right? It's all about surviving and
Mm.
herding this one goat. And so I went up to her car and she looked at me like she had a bunch of money. Don't tell my husband. Don't tell my husband. I said, lady, watch where you're going. And because I thought, what does it matter if that my bumper is dented? Doesn't matter. It matters that we're just good people. That we're and that to me was Africa. And it's not to say, oh, I'm a good person. It's just
Hmm.
to say if I hadn't had that experience in Africa, if I just hadn't come back, I would have been, yep, interface, let's exchange information, etc. But I thought, no, because of Africa, I realized it's okay to just let it go. It's just a bumper. And I did. And it felt good.
Wow.
Hmm.
Very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. That's
How
just,
long was it between those two incidences, like you leaving Africa and that? So, because I'm here on the Northeast, and New York City can be just as crazy. People, and it's hard to let some things go like that.
I was only home for, it was maybe a week or two.
I
I
see.
can't say it stayed with me forever. The
Right,
funny thing
right.
is, I did get rear-ended 2 weeks later, 2 weeks after that. And I thought, well, now I'm going to run it through insurance. So it
What
wasn't like it stayed with me for a lifetime. Mhm.
it's fascinating, the culture here in the US is just I have I told a story before how my father's from Italy, and when I was 10 years old, he first day of summer vacation, he gave me a suitcase and fill it up, and he, dropped me off and said, "You're going to meet your grandmother." Gave me a picture of my grandmother in Milan, so
Wow.
10-year-old on a plane, and so I spent 11 weeks in Italy every other summer, and it's just the way
Wow.
Italians, Southern Italians, just live is just so much different than here. Very
Yes.
different.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
not that one's better than the other. I don't really make judgments, but it's just you just kind of learn to, slow down a little bit. When I return there and I tell them that sometimes I work 50 hours a week, they thrash their, what are you doing working so hard? That's why you have gray hair. And what are you doing to yourself? But I think as Americans, we kind of have an island mentality here all too often, where we can learn so much from other nations when it comes to just how to live.
We can, but that's what makes us unique as well. A lot of people, oh, I want to live in America. I want to be like
Mm,
Americans. There's a lot of great things about, our lifestyle too, but it's not the be all and end all.
right.
And I think if we can just take a little piece of everything and learn from each other and just be very mindful that we do have other experiences and other cultures and just be kind to one another. Wow, what a concept, right? It's good. It's good to have differences. I embrace, I love it. I love going overseas and just like, all right, let's yeah, let's learn from you. I want to learn. How do you live? Because yeah, it's yeah. I think you learn. I think you become a. There's you more you open up your eyes to things, the more you just see a different side of things and have a different perspective. Perspective's good.
Perspective is wonderful. There's just
Yeah.
different ways to do things. And again, not making judgments, not one that's better than the other, but it's just different ways of doing things. And when I spend a lot of time, I just happen to know Italy very well. Whenever somebody travels, I always give them three pieces of advice, and I wonder if this translates to where you go. One is, when you're going to get something to eat, ask the police. The hotels, the maitre d's, the taxi drivers, they all get paid. The police, they'll just tell you where they eat. Two is, uh, when you're going to a restaurant, if it's in English, go to another place. You want it in the local, and even better if it's up on a chalkboard. That means it's even fresh. And third, certainly in Italy, the local wine in the carafe is much better than in a bottle, and it's usually less expensive. So those are the three traveling pieces of advice I give when going to Italy. I wonder if that's similar to
Ah,
Kilimanjaro or to where you've been. Well, certainly not Antarctica. There's no police
interesting.
there. Yeah.
Interesting that yours all revolve around food and wine.
Yes.
Did you notice that?
I just think I just noticed that, didn't I? Yeah.
Okay. No, we don't have chalkboards and we don't have carafes of wine. I have to say it's a much different experience on the mountains. It is eat, sleep, survive.
Right.
That is, you just have to. Yeah, food is very important because you have to fuel up.
Right.
On Everest, I even Denali, it's like literally just eat because you've got to fuel up because you're
Wow.
burning so many calories. And, in a way, it's good because, it's kind of fun. You can eat whatever you want because you're just going to burn it off anyway. And you're encouraged to eat whatever you want. But, sometimes it's not the best of food. Sleep is super important because you gotta just be able to, regenerate yourself and be the best. Like sometimes you're waking up in the middle of the night when the mountain is most stable. And so you're getting up when your body is super, super tired. So you sleep when you can, where you can, because most often you're going to be climbing in the middle of the night.
Wow.
That's one of our other piece of advice. And then survive. You just have to, you put everything else aside. I actually say this in some of my talks with Everest. We only have those three things to do. It's actually pretty freeing because there's
Hmm.
no grocery stores, there's
Right.
no traffic lights, there's no bills to pay, there's nothing. You don't even have to cook your own food. It's just here's what you're going to eat today and eat it. And then you got to sleep and then you just have to survive. Those are your
Wow.
three things you have to do today. It's actually so as hard as it is to climb Everest, everything else goes away and you just have to focus and it's awesome.
Hmm.
I actually loved it. It was kind of a life lesson. Yeah.
Certainly. And
Mhm.
you, at one point, you got sick going up Everest, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, so I knew going in that a lot of people get what's called the Khumbu cough, and that's from inhaling dry glacier air, and it's in the Khumbu Valley, and it's sort of most people are going to get it. Well, I got this Khumbu cough. I coughed and coughed and coughed and coughed 6 weeks, 6 weeks
Wow.
nonstop. And
Wow.
it was really hard because one, there's not a whole lot of like the oxygen level at base camp is, at 17,500 feet. So you're hanging out there for weeks on end. And with the thin air, with the cold air, with this dry air, I got this cough. And then I also got a cold. You're really, really in close quarters. And so if someone gets sick, you better stay away because you're all going to get sick. And I got a
Hmm.
chest cold as well, and a chest cold plus this dry cough at high altitude. Oh, it was killing me. It was nonstop sickness. And um, it was, you have this big mask on, plus you have your big down suit on, and you can't breathe. And I coughed so much that I pulled a front rib, and then I pulled a back rib, and
Ah.
it was tough. I thought at one point there was one day, and I thought I have to turn around. I'm too sick to continue. And I'm very grateful that I didn't. I'm very grateful that I had a Sherpa with me that day who just said, "Oh, let's just continue on just a little bit more, a little bit farther." So
Hmm.
we did, and I'm like, "Oh, we got to camp, and I was able to make it and get some rest." But it was pretty tough because I got so sick. Yeah, but
Did,
mm,
did you consider not continuing?
yeah, that day I was going to turn around, and it really was because of my Sherpa who said, let's just go a little bit
Hmm.
farther, because I was strong otherwise. It was just this cold was bogging me down. I was congested and coughing, and I pulled my ribs. And it was a day when we were climbing what's called the Lhotse face from Camp 2 to Camp 3, and it's a straight up ice wall, blue ice, hard, 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 hard ice. And so you dig in with your crampons, both boots, you dig in, and you have what's called an ascender device, and you go up on the ropes. And so every time I went up, it felt like someone was kicking me on the ribs. And then
Oh
you
my
dig in, you go up, dig in, and it's just sort of this muscle memory. And you just do this hours and hours on end. And I was just in pain. And so here's one thing though that I learned about myself that I think everyone has in them, but I don't know if it was only because I pushed myself, but it was um, it was mindset. I decided that on the Lhotse face that I am going to accept the pain
God. Hmm.
and move on. And instead, because every time I knew I had to lift my arm on the ascender on this rope, I was getting antsy, like, oh, it's gonna hurt, because I was hurting my ribs, I was coughing, and I decided accept it, just accept that pain. And once I accepted it, I still felt it, and it was still part of this whole climbing the Lhotse face, but it was almost like it was an aside versus
Hmm.
the only thing I could focus on. It became like, okay, I've accepted it, and I'm just going to continue on. And it was like I shifted my mind, and I was
Wow.
it was I was so surprised at how, I don't know how to explain it, but how how powerful your mind can be. And once I accepted this is going to be painful, it was actually okay. The pain wasn't the first thing I thought about. And I'll never forget that moment
Hmm.
when I decided to accept the pain. It still painful, but it wasn't all encompassing. It was interesting. It was interesting what changed. Yeah, and it was that moment that got me up, that low-see face that day.
Wow.
Mhm. Yeah.
You gave me chills there. I mean, talking about getting out of your comfort zone. I mean, you're dealing with this pain. You're conducting an event that you don't have to do, but that's what you
Yeah,
want to
true.
do. But you're still
Mhm.
accepting it, and you're going forward with your goal. I mean, that's inspiring. You mentioned the Sherpa. I think there's a lesson there that many, will eventually bring around to the channel and to to
Mhm.
technology, but how important the Sherpa is to this journey.
I mean, I couldn't have done it without the Sherpa. And there's a school of thought that says you should be self sufficient on the mountain or else you shouldn't be on the mountain. And then, then there's hacks like me who are the tourist climbers. It's not like I just decided one day I'm going to go climb Everest and then the
Right.
next month I did it. I spent a lot of years training. But at the same time, the the Sherpa, and it's a it's Sherpa is kind of synonymous with a guide, but they're not guides. They're a clan in a certain region in Nepal,
Hmm.
and they are really well known for their ability to perform well at high altitude. And they are incredible, strong climbers, but just incredible, beautiful people. If it wasn't for my Sherpa, just his skills, but also his compassion, his empathy, saying, "Hey," like he knew I was sick that day, but hey, let's just go a little bit farther, and just the support that he gave me and the empathy that, yeah, like he wasn't struggling, he was fine, but he knew that I was, and he just supported me that day. And it was, I'll never forget that. It was, because they're risking their lives for
Yeah.
some hack from Southern California who just wants to climb Mount Everest, and he really helped get me there. Yeah, it
Have
was
you
it
had
was teamwork.
Yeah, teamwork, absolutely. Have you had mentors in your life?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we all should have mentors in our life. But yes, I have.
And
Yeah.
how did you seek them out? Did they find you?
No, the one of my first mentors, like professionally, was through a mentor program at when I was working at IBM. And I've taken that lesson learned and moved over to Trend Micro, because what they did really really well at IBM was, give you a mentor to work with. And
Hmm.
I had a mentor. At the time, I wanted a female in a global role on the West Coast who was in sales. And I was able to really define who I wanted. And I was able to be matched up, perfectly paired with that person who met what it is that I was looking for.
Hmm.
It was incredible. I talked to as part of the mentor program at Trend Micro, I talk about that too. Who are you looking for? What are you looking for? Like, you have to know too. You can't just go, "Oh, I'll just take anyone," because that puts a lot of pressure on that person who becomes your mentor. Well, what are you looking for? You have to have some sense of self. What is it that you want? And from that, I moved forward and got other mentors in other areas of the business, other areas of life. And yeah, I firmly believe we all need some guide in our life, whether it be a mentor, a Sherpa, or you know, some companion. Yeah, I think we can't do it alone.
Yeah, it's very interesting how, I've been part of peer groups as,
Hmm.
in HTG was one and Evolve, it turned into Evolve. And that was the first kind of venture for me to kind of see other peers. I felt like all alone as being, an owner, an entrepreneur, and I had these peers, but and then a couple of kind of mentors came my way. But that's interesting that the company that IBM would actually have a mentorship program. That's an excellent way to do that. That way you can kind of match that up and uh,
Yeah.
find that. That's and Trend does that as well. That's very, very interesting. And do you continue any of those mentors that you had in the past? Do you continue to be mentored by them?
So there's a difference, right? Sometimes the mentorship is for a period of time only.
Ah,
And sometimes, you don't want to drag on like, oh, I got to get on this call
right.
every month and talk about I don't know what. So I think sometimes the mentorship program, it's for a finite period of time. It's 6 months, one time a month for 1 hour, whatever. We're gonna get this out of it. After that, call me if you need me. We'll connect every. So it's become more that. And then other, I have a boss someone at Trend Micro who used to be my boss, is now we're peers, but I still use him as my mentor, and I'll call him up and say, okay, I need this. Like I'll preface it. I need some advice from you. I'm
Mm,
looking for this. And then he knows to put on that mentor hat versus the friend hat or the coworker hat. I
mm.
need some advice. And so it's worked really well that way. And I think different people in your life have different, bring different things to the table. And, whether it be, and I think it's okay to ask them, hey, you do this for me. Can you support in this way? Versus, yeah, I think it's okay to ask for what you need. And people, for the most part, I think people are willing to help, want to help. I get a number of people, a lot of new people in the company who are looking for some support, some advice, and I'm more than happy to, whether it be a half hour every, whatever. But you have to know what you want.
Mm.
I find that's the tough part of mentoring is like pulling it out of them. What is it that you're looking for? You have to give me something to work with. Yeah, but yes, so good question. Is it long term? Sometimes it can be, but I think you need to set some boundaries. This is for a period of time. I'm looking to get this out of it, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, what do you
That's
really
important.
want?
Mhm.
Such a simple question, but what do you want to be when you grow up? It's we've been asked that as a child, and we continue to be. I continue to challenge myself that as an adult. It's what do you want out of it? And now, of
Mhm.
course, now you're 7 years at Trend Micro. I mean, cybersecurity. You're vice president of channels. You're a recent Forza Dash, channel leader.
Thank you
Congratulations.
for that recognition. I should have
Very,
started
very
with
cool.
that.
Yeah, over 300 applicants, 50 were selected, and you were one
Yes,
of them. And I really appreciate you being part of that. But
thank you.
cybersecurity is such a critical thing. I mean, what's happening now, of course, what's happening overseas, and I feel it's one of the biggest threats we face. Just just in our society, in our
Mhm.
planet. Being head of channel there is a big undertaking, Louise. And so, how do you translate everything that you've learned through all these experiences and pains and through mountain climbing and mentorship and bring it to a challenging role of Trend Micro there? It's wonderful.
Well, again, thank you again for the recognition. It was an honor to be recognized as one of the channel chiefs with Forza Dash. Thank you so much again. I do appreciate that. Yeah, it was a nice surprise. I can't say I have all the answers. I'm still learning. I think we're all still
Mm,
learning. Are all still on this journey. But I do, yeah, critical cybersecurity, critical. It is a kind of a scary world that we live in right now. I don't think people realize just how pervasive it is. Like, oh, that's the problem of the government, or that's the problem of the healthcare, or the no, this is our data is out there. Our data
mm,
isn't being secured. You have to be very mindful of what you put out there and how much information you give. And I people ask, oh, your social security number. I'm like, what do you need it for? That's for
right.
tax reporting purposes only. What do you need it for? And then you're like, oh, I don't actually need it. I'm like, okay, it's just on some form that someone determined, oh, let's just ask for it. And, let's just collect miscellaneous data on you. I don't give out anything. I'm kind of a brat when it comes to
Mm,
forms like that. If you don't need it, you don't get it because now it's out there and I need to protect myself. And I think it's okay to say, you don't need that data. And if you do, it's okay to say, how do you protect your data? And I bet you most people, most companies, most doctors, most whatever are like, I don't know. It's on a laptop somewhere. I'm like, yeah, exactly. And so it's okay to say, I'm not offering that information, and you get, just what you need to perform the services or whatever it is that you need, because there is so much going on behind the scenes. And we, being in cybersecurity, we get privy to some of the things that are going on, and we see the redacted information, and you're like, wow, that's a lot of data that people don't realize they're giving up. They're pictures. You just need to be mindful. There's Yeah, and it's an easy dollar to get. I'm going to
Mm,
hold your data for ransom, or I'm going to take down your company, your brand, your IP, your employee data, whatever it is. I'm going to encrypt your financial systems, or I'm going to encrypt your, and now you can't do business. You're like,
wow.
wow, okay, well, I'm just going to give up all my money because I need to recover this data really, really, really quickly. So you think it like you got to think, okay, what's the plan? What's the big picture? And if something goes down, what is that financial, like what is something that's not only financial, it is, your brand is gone or
Right.
your customers are gone. Now you can't manage your customers. So you got to think about the bigger picture and really go, okay, I need a plan in place because the biggest companies in the world are getting infiltrated. So how do you protect yourself, not only your personal data, but the companies you're at, and partners play a big part of that, whether it be through the services that they offer as a managed service provider to an SMB um, company, or to larger companies. There's so many attack surfaces, whether it be your endpoints, your servers, your networks, your cloud, it's all over. You really have to be mindful of what's out there, and it's
Yeah.
it's valuable information to people.
It really is. I can
Mhm.
remember I'm dating myself, but in the 90s there was like I don't know for the Melissa virus, I think, which was just simply like, your computer would say, "I love you, Melissa," or something. That was the extent of the virus. But now, of course, it's very, very different as people are being held ransom, and we see this all too often now. You mentioned managed service providers. Of course, I've been one for a long time, and my heart is with them a little bit. And you know, what advice do you have to MSPs when choosing a security partner, perhaps like Trend Micro, and being their partner and helping their clients to these attack services that you mentioned?
Yeah, good question. it- I would I would look at what's their support. How can they support you in a time of need? Like something goes down, or like solar winds. That
Mm,
affected a lot of MSPs, right? I remember seeing that come on my news feed on a Friday afternoon at 5 p.m. In our director of MSPs, I contacted him right away. I'm like, I think we got something big right now. Within milliseconds, there's a task force that was assembled worldwide at Trend Micro,
wow.
and it was like, okay, we've got to go heads down because we know that a number of our end customers, and our end customers being MSPs and their downstream customers, are going to be affected. Okay, task force, and it was nonstop, and it was
Wow.
it's a 7,000 person company and it's global, so there's people all over the world in all these different time zones, and within I say milliseconds, but very, very quickly, we had a task force assembled and people working around the clock to make sure that we had our MSPs, our customers, our end
Wow.
customers back. And I was really proud of the way the company reacted, and just it was all hands on deck. And I was seeing the messages all weekend. Okay, we've got this, we've got this patch, we've got this blog. We're reaching out to these and these and these customers, and sometimes you don't know what you don't know. You don't know where all of the threats are, and so it's just a matter of being on and available. And so if I were to say, okay, I'm going to be an MSP, and what security provider am I going to choose, I go, well, who's going to be there for me in that time of need? It's not
Mm,
just, oh, how much money am I going to make, but I need someone who's got my back, who's 24/7, who's big enough to really, really support me through that entire time, because it does make a difference versus feeling like you're all alone going, "Hello, I'm sending an email to some support line and I don't know who's going to answer me." I would say that would be the biggest thing I would look for. You want to make sure they have really solid products, obviously, because you
of
have to
course.
make sure that's actually securing the data. Um, but that can come with it. Like, make sure you've got the right vendor who's going, who really, and it's not just looking for a quick buck, but who
Right.
really is in there for the long term, versus I'm just trying to make add to my list of MSP numbers that day. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's just one example of, a real life example of, how we really came together very, very quickly, because we knew those MSPs there's going to be some downstream effect, and we need to make sure that they have all the support they need.
Absolutely. I was gonna ask what mountain you were on when you got that notification, but obviously
I was
uh,
at home, it was Friday night, I was looking at my phone and went, "Wait a second," something just came up, and it was like a ding, ding, ding. No, I wasn't on a mountain, and when I'm on a mountain, there's, a whole team of people who are got my back.
I see,
Yeah,
of course, of course, of course. And
yeah,
of course, yeah, the solar winds was one thing and of Kaseya was another, and,
yeah,
we see this happening all too often, and I'm afraid it's just only gonna get worse, I'm afraid, and that's why we have to partner with great companies like yourself to help the
yeah,
MSPs help their clients. When there's a great technology and there's a great channel in play, everybody wins. Louise, you know this. I mean,
yeah,
the MSPs win, Trend wins,
right.
the SMBs win. It's a win-win-win.
Yeah, it really is. If I can give a quick plug to Trend Micro for a sec. There's a
Please,
cybersecurity skills gap, right?
of course.
And so it's a tough environment for especially, these smaller companies. Like, can they afford people? Do they? And, it's even hard to find people. But what Trend Micro has done, and they've recognized there is this skills gap, is we've taken people who want to get into technology, may not have the education, the background, the experience, the financial means to be a cybersecurity expert. We take them and we train them. We put them on a very, very like fast track, like a 10-week program, and they get their Azure training. And it's not just Trend Micro products, but it's your AWS fundamentals. It's all these different
Wow.
parts of the business, and we train them, and then we graduate all of them. They go through this really intensive training. They get paid for it.
Hmm.
There's no charge for it. We give them all these different certifications, and then we take a number of them, and they become Trend Micro employees if they choose the employment. And then the people who are not Trend Micro employees but is still graduated, we ask our partners to hire them or our customers to hire. You now
Wow.
have these newly minted cybersecurity professionals who have vast amounts of certifications, and we've done all that training. And here's let's close the gap on the cybersecurity. Yeah, so it's an incredible program. We do it from both the business side and from the technical side of the business. And I think we're on for the in the, I don't know how many we've graduated. It's hundreds and hundreds so far of these
Wow.
cybersecurity professionals that we put through these programs, and in the U.S., but it's been all around the world as well. Yeah,
That's
I'm really
absolutely
proud of it.
wonderful.
I'm proud of what they've done because it's not just, cybersecurity is a challenge for all of us, and we all have to step into how do we fix this. And part of that fix is we have to address the skills gap. So they're doing that. Yeah, yeah, proud moment.
Absolutely. That's a wonderful story. I'm so glad I didn't know anything about that. That
Really.
needs to get out. That needs to get out to the community. And I wonder, can MSPs put their employees through it?
That's a good question.
Thanks.
um, I don't know. I mean, technically, it's for those. Literally, we get people who are baristas who
Wow.
need a break in their career, or
Yeah.
someone who's a trainer at a gym but wants to get into IT but just hasn't had a chance to get into
Right.
it. And we take them. We almost want
That's
them
awesome.
fresh, and we give them all of this training. And it's not just, oh, we're just going to inundate you with Trend Micro products. No, it is, here is the landscape in cybersecurity. Here's what AWS is doing. Here's the cloud, part of the business. You sit on customer calls. You get to know, your soft skills, your hard skills. You get to understand how LinkedIn works, et cetera, et cetera.
Hmm.
We do a lot. It's a great, great program. MSPs, I'll have to look into it. I'll get back to you on that one.
Sure. Is it Trend Micro University? Is there a name that people that are listening can search for this?
So we have two different programs. One's called our general markets, and that's for our business folks, the sellers. I've had a couple of general markets graduates on the channel team, and the other one's called CPITS, and it stands for certification something. I wish I could. Uh, I should have. It's called
Too many
CPITS.
acronyms.
Yeah, it's some type of professional certification in cybersecurity. Yeah,
Very, very cool.
yeah.
Louise McEvoy, what motivates you?
Um, Well, I have to say my brand is, in the office, it's channel, it's security. I've been in channel, I've been in security for a pretty long time. I'm real protective of my brand. I'm Everything I do, it's a bow on top of it. I don't go halfway. I go all in. And my personal life, it's adventure, risk, climbing. I just What motivates me? That's a really good question. Darn it. I don't have a really good answer. I like pushing myself. I like trying new things. I like trying things that I know are super, super hard,
Mm.
that are risky, dangerous, scary. I jump in with both feet. I thrive on maybe adventure, risk. Yeah, I don't know, learning new things. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, I love being pushed. I love, I'm the first one to say I don't know what I don't know, so I want to learn. I'm happy to just take on new things, take on new challenges. I don't
Perhaps
know if
going back to the
I don't know if
very
that's a
first
good
question.
answer.
I'm sorry?
I don't know if it's a good answer or not. Yeah.
Perhaps going back to the very first question of getting out of your comfort zone. It seems to me you strive to do that.
Yeah. I have learned more in life, in all facets of life, when I get out of my comfort zone.
Mm.
If you do the same thing day in, day out, because it's comfort, because you know it, because it's then that to me, I get bored easily, and I'd rather just try something new. Just why not, right? Why not? Yeah.
We talk a lot about discipline on the podcast. I've done many things in
Yeah.
my life, and it's very similar to what we've been talking about. I mean, do you consider yourself a disciplined person?
In some areas, yeah. Yep, I do. I get up every day and I work out because it's important to me that I work out. It's
Mm,
important to me to eat healthy. I still enjoy a cookie and wine. So I'm not perfect.
good for
I can't
you.
say I'm perfect. Yeah, but when you talk about discipline, I think life gets in the way and it's okay not to be disciplined 100% of the time.
Mm,
But when I was training for Mount Everest, I was maniacally focused on my training. Remember, I told you, I like being in control, but there's a lot of things you can't be in control of.
right.
And it was actually freeing to think, okay, there's so many things about this climb I can't control, like my health for the most part, the mountain, the conditions, the team, the experience, the weather, all of these things. And if you start getting in your head, it's like, oh, it's too much. So I decided I'm going to let all of that go. And I decided I'm going to be most in control of my fitness. And so
Hmm,
I made a commitment to myself that I'm going to be the most fit I've ever been when I step on that mountain. And
wow.
that takes discipline, because climbing a mountain like Mount Everest takes discipline and it takes enormous amount of fitness. And I made a promise to myself that if I don't make the summit of Everest, it's not going to be because I'm not fit. It's going to be
Mm,
from some other factor that I can't control, like the weather, whatever it might be, but it's not going to be because of my fitness. And so that took a whole lot of discipline. And it meant waking up every morning at 4 o'clock in the morning and working out for 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. And on Saturdays, I would go hiking in the local mountains here. They go up to 11,500 feet. And
wow.
I would climb with weights on my ankles, heavy backpack, and I would go all day. Sunday, I'd rest. And then the next day, I would do it. And next week, I'd do it all over again. Yeah, so that was, for me, that was my discipline, because I knew that I was the only thing I could control to get for Everest. So I'm going to be that most in control of it. And what it was great about it is it freed up everything else. I
Mm.
no longer focused on the weather, the conditions of the team, who's going to be. It didn't matter anymore because I can't control it. So why control it? Why fuss about it? So I just was in control of that one thing, fitness. It was good. I loved it.
Inspiring, Louise. Absolutely inspiring. There are certain things you just can't control, and life deals you that, and you deal with it where you can. I had a soccer coach back when in high school who had that same philosophy. We're not going to lose because we're not in shape. We'll lose because they outplayed us or we didn't get some breaks. And
Mm,
boy, we were in shape that season, I'll tell you. And
mm. That's a good coach.
it's very inspiring. Yeah, very inspiring. You may say he may focus on skills just a little more than he did, but that was a long time ago. But
Mhm.
how do you measure success?
You know, I usually have a goal in mind. Like, I do my planning for work. Okay, what's my goal today? It could be a daily goal, it could be a quarterly goal, or
Hmm.
your annual strategic business plan. I'm pretty goal oriented, and I strive for, hey, the next big thing, the next thing. And so I look at numbers a lot. I look at data a lot. So I'm always looking at what's my what's that goal for
Hmm.
today, or how do I move the business? That's always my mantra. How do I move the business today? And at the end of the day, do I think, did I move the business, or did I just do my job? Oh no, I moved the business today. That I'm always looking um, at those kind of metrics to evaluate that success. So I'm pretty numbers, data, looking, making sure I see that there's a movement in play versus just doing my job, just standing still. I can't. Yeah.
What don't you like doing?
Um, there's a lot of things I'm not good at. I'm not good at cooking. I'm not
Really?
good. Oh gosh, no. Um, my sister is the creative one in the family, and she has these beautiful whatever she makes. It turns to gold. She makes quilts for babies. She makes kids for capes for kids who are having a hard day, so they feel like Superman. And
Wow.
she decorates perfect. She hosts fabulous dinners. I'm like, oh my goodness. I am horrible at all of that. Horrible. I leave that to the experts. It's good to know what your weaknesses are and just go,
Mm.
I'm good with that. I'm good that I'm not yeah, I'm good with that. Because strengths are elsewhere. You can't be perfect in everything.
No, you can't, but it seems that you're really good in a lot of things, and
Oh, no, no, you're giving me too much credit.
inspiring, Louise. Absolutely. I hope those that are listening and or watching, can receive the inspiration. Certainly that I've received from you, and I really, really enjoyed our time together today. And I look forward to maybe one day. I don't know if you remember, I met you one time in Las
Mhm.
Colinas.
Yeah.
But were you still living in Southern California at that point?
I was in Dallas for 1 year.
Ah,
They asked me to move to headquarters for a year.
I
So
see.
yeah, I was based in Dallas when I saw you. Yeah.
Yeah, and that you were wonderful then too, and it just has stuck in my mind. And you were just very
Oh,
gracious. There was an issue with some of the MSPs with with a particular issue that was going on. You did not hide from it. You brought me there, and we talked about it, and I presented it back to them. I mean, you were very straightforward with it, and I met a lot of your team there, and I'm still in
yeah,
contact with some of them too. It's just you
yeah.
don't hide behind anything, and you mean what you say, and that's evident in everything that you do. Thank you so much for your time
Appreciate
today,
that.
Louise McEvoy. Just an absolute pleasure. I look forward to, if I remember correctly, we did have a little wine that day, and perhaps I'll have another glass sometime in the
Did.
future with a
Yes,
cookie.
our CEO has a winery in Napa, and we had wine.
That's
Yes, it was
right.
very nice to host you there.
That's right.
Maybe we'll
That's right.
have another toast sometime. I would really enjoy that.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. You be well, and I look forward to seeing you face to face sometime in the future. And thanks again.
Thank you again for everything. All the best. I
Be
do.
well. Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pin's Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information. The video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Would you like to financially support the podcast? You can go to our Patreon site. Consider 5, 10, or $20 a month. There's all kind of plans that we have there. There's like a one-time payment. What is this podcast episode worth to you? $25, $50, $100, $500, $1,000, $5,000. You be the judge. You can go to our PayPal account to do that as well. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pin's Discipline Conversations.